Uh, Welcome everyone. Today we're going to have a quick interview with Chris. Chris is the owner and operator of Karve Razor that you guys know. Thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you.
Chris, for the viewers, could you please introduce yourself?
Well, my name is Chris Kirchen. I'm the owner and operator of Karve Shaving Co. We make the Christopher Bradley that many of you know. Got a couple other products we're working on, some soft goods, some leather goods, and my shop is out of Edmonton, Alberta, and I've got a few employees that help me out.
Thanks, Chris. Chris, where the idea of making razors came from?
Well, it's actually kind of a long answer. A few places. I met a friend online who was interested in some of the machining things I was sharing on Instagram on the Karve Machine page. He reached out to me fairly early on. We developed a friendship, but one of the things he was interested in seeing me do was making a safety razor. Wasn't something I was into at the time, so I dismissed it, or I put it off to the side for a long time. And then when business got a little bit difficult because of the recession in 2016, 2017, I revisited it and started wet shaving, fell in love with it. It was the scent of a soap that got me hooked. Reminded me of my dad when he was shaving when I was younger. And then started building brushes and started working on a razor. And as I started to develop it, I realized that this was something that was easy to get passionate about. So it was easy to see it all the way through, and then finally have a full product at the end of 2017.
Okay. When we look at your brand, okay, a lot of people are talking about the Karve razor, but on the box, okay, we see Christopher Bradley. Can you give us an explanation on the difference between both?
Oh, for sure. So obviously, Karve is the brand, Karve Shaving Co. It's a play on my first name of my first letter of my last name, and Karve, the fact that we shape metal and plastics and a lot of different materials. Christopher Bradley came from a place where we wanted to give this creation a personality, so something we could get behind, something people could identify with, in the same way that people will give their car a name, or they will give the equipment that they work with a name or an identity, something just to give it something to be passionate about. The Christopher is obviously in reference to me. That's my full proper name. And the Bradley is the friend that I met online that got me into wet shaving in the first place. So when I was expressing an interest in it, well, he, out of the blue, sent me a care package. So my first razor actually came from there. So it seemed fitting that the razor's full name came from something that meant something.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
No pen.
Can you talk to us about how you develop the Christopher Bradley razor?
Oh, for sure. So, like any development project, it was iterative, meaning I went through, a bunch of concepts. Most of them were basic improvements, revisions, handle thickness, head size. Early on I made a decision that I wanted the tabs of the blades to be exposed. It's not everybody's preference, but I preferred it because from an operation of the razor standpoint, it was easier to load and unload the blade, and I really preferred that style. In terms of the development of some of the manufacturing processes, obviously it catered to the equipment that I have in the shop. So we have a couple of lathes, we have a couple of mills. I'm using those tools. I'm not designing around equipment I don't have, or cutters that I can't get, materials I can't get. And in terms of some of the tolerances, obviously I drew on my history and experience as a machinist and an engineer to make sure that we had a product in the next 5 years that was compatible with what we were making today, so that it was forwards compatible as well as backwards compatible.
What was the inspiration for the form, the aesthetic, and the material of the razor?
Okay, so a little bit of I guess a multifaceted question. The material obviously is brass. I chose brass because I really like the material and the way it ages over time. So obviously I'm referring to the patina, the discoloration that occurs with moisture, with air, with humidity, and then also the subsequent removal of it when you handle it. So a razor that forms a patina when nobody's touching it is much darker, and as you handle it, the wear spots wear away, and it almost ages along with you, and that's something that I've always enjoyed. I find it's a romantic aspect of that material, so it resounded with me. Obviously, a razor is meant to be heirloom, something you have for a long time, so seeing it evolve with you, I felt was something that was desirable. The overall aesthetic, most of the lines on the head, on the plate, they're all clean, and really they were driven by swarf flow. We wanted the hair, the soap, anything to just pass through as much as possible. A little bit of it was governed by what was available in equipment, and also just what looked aesthetically pleasing. The guilloche, the knurling on the handle, is a direct tie-in to my interest in watchmaking. It's very amateur interest, but the way they used to put those patterns onto watch faces, watch cases, that kind of stuff, it was a computational lathe that basically made complex patterns out of cams and gears and followers and guides, and they come up with these beautiful patterns. So I took the cue from that. It's similar to knurling, obviously. It's a simple pattern. And then obviously the machining technique it's a slicing process, so we don't have any sharp edges. It's nice and clean, but it still provides a surface that it really is the only interface to the user other than blade. So we want to make sure that when you've got wet hands, soapy hands, they've got good connection to it, so it feels like an extension of them, so that they enjoy the shaving experience as much as possible.
Okay. Can you talk to us about what's new and coming from Karve?
Yes, absolutely. So probably the one that most people are familiar with, because I've been hinting at it for a long time and a lot recently, is a stainless razor. Recently finished a prototype. We've got some pictures up. That is the next product that's going to be released. Okay. The biggest roadblock to that right now is figuring out how to optimize our manufacturing so that we can make consistent parts quickly, so that it actually hits a price point that's desirable.
Okay.
Yeah. Beyond that, we've also got an aluminum razor coming up. I've also hinted at this as well. We've got prototypes now that are a reality. We've picked some colors. And we're getting ready to release it right away.
Okay.
We've also started to get into some soft goods recently. We've got a soap that we're about to release. We call it the Semois Valley. It's a fresh tobacco leaf scent. I've always had a soft spot for tobacco scents. This is always going back right to the beginning. For some reason it's really resounded from me with a scent profile. The Semois Valley specifically is a region in Belgium. My dad grew up near there, so when I got him to try one of the prototypes, it was the first thing that popped into his head was his childhood as a Boy Scout, spending time in that area, and I figured that was a very good tie-in, obviously a tribute a little bit. It's a base that we get made in Edmonton, so our shop is in Edmonton, Karve Shaving is in Edmonton. The soap maker is also in Edmonton, and he's blended it for our scent profile.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And then the last product we've got here is it's an April Fool's product. It was a Peak razor. We're producing the first and only production run right now. The inspiration was as we got into products, I knew I wanted to do something for April Fool's, because I always had fun seeing what other people were doing, but I wanted to give it meaning, something that was still laughable or comical, but wasn't just a throwaway, something that meant a collector's piece, something that would still be interesting in a few years. Peak itself is a really high-end plastic. I've come into contact with it a few times over my professional career before I got into razors, so I felt it was a good fit. And obviously using Peak for a safety razor is a play on all the disposable razors that obviously proliferate the market today, as a counter to the DE razors that are out there. But the reality with Peak is it's a high quality material, so we've actually got a fairly robust product out of it. It's not the same as a brass razor or as a stainless razor, but it's a difference. It's an option.
Okay. Now, about that famous G-plate. Will it ever come up to fruition?
Well, those of you that have followed us from the beginning know that I am highly suggestible when it comes to things like that. Early on, we only had 4 plates. We only had 2 handles. The 3.5 was a suggestion on Canadian wedge shavers, we embraced it, we loved it, we loved the reception of it. The E and the F plates are the same, the 3 1/4 handle is the same. I learned very early on that we listen to our customers. I've joked about the G plates, and I guess to the right people, because as soon as they hear that, they're all over it. So there's a very good chance that that's a reality very soon.
I'm so glad to hear. The open combs, can you talk to us a little bit about them?
Yes. Okay, so obviously in the last couple of months, we branched out in the product line. So we've now got an open comb plate to go into addition of the solid bar that we've been offering since the beginning. Those of you that aren't familiar, obviously it's a different type of shave. It's a little bit more aggressive, has some properties that wedge shavers like. It is an option that will exist across all the razors that we foresee. So the stainless that I talk about, the aluminum that I talk about, the peak, obviously they all are available with open comb as well as solid bars, with all the options on the plate levels too. So we're adjusting aggressiveness on both aspects. And then to speak to the geometry, so I decided that the geometry of the blade, so angle, exposure, gap, and the fourth one, crap. Now I'm drawing a blank. I'm just gonna
Angle, exposure, gap, and
clamping.
clamping.
Sorry.
Yeah, the other one, clamping.
Yeah.
Okay, the most important one that we always talk about,
Yes.
the clamping.
Yes. So I'll start from there. So the geometry of all the different plates is actually identical. So when you get a B plate in an open comb or a B plate in a solid bar or in a stainless razor, they all have the same angle, the same blade exposure, gap, and most importantly, the blade clamping. So we're getting a consistent geometry presented across an identical plate level, even though the material or the style of plate changes. And the reason for that is obviously that Christopher Bradley has a personality, and that's part of it. The way the blade is presented is part of its personality, and we wanted to maintain that and make it consistent. In a future version, when we get it, it will likely have its own name to give it its own personality, whether it's more aggressive or less aggressive, or we change the blade angle, or the style of clamping, whatever it is, it'll have its own distinct personality.
That's great. Chris, thank you very much for the time you gave us, to me and Filslade and the viewers, to talk about your company and your product. For everyone, I hope you enjoyed. I'm going to wish you tons of good shaves, a great week, and I hope to see you next week for another interview or maybe shaving review. Okay? Bye, guys.
I realize there's a clock
Nice.
on the, oh, that isn't a clock. I could see it in the picture. And